Today's video is brought to you by the newest Dreadnought tier patron over on the EckhartsLadder Patreon, Clamburglar. If you want to see about getting extra benefits, including bonus content, name shoutouts like this, and more, visit patreon.com/EckhartsLadder, linked down in the description. Now let's roll the intro. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. Just a short one today because I want to tackle a very interesting question that I know a lot of people, including myself, have had. And this was actually brought to me by my very good friend Kevin Coolx. He runs a Halo YouTube channel, a phenomenal one, which I'll link down below. But he pointed out to me that in the second to most recent episode of The Bad Batch, they used the word draconian. For those who don't know, draconian means harsh or cruel. However, it's the etymology here that's interesting. The word is derived from an ancient Greek legislator known as Draco. Obviously that's a bit weird. Star Wars, of course, is always in English unless you're listening or reading in another language, but it just seems even further strange to have the words based in ancient Greek so obviously, and that's far from the only case of something like this happening. If you watch or especially read a lot of Star Wars, you'll notice these anachronistic phrases quite frequently, words which just should not exist in a universe which doesn't have Earth's history. Probably the most famous example would be "see you in hell." That's a phrase that Han says in The Empire Strikes Back. The Star Wars universe isn't usually depicted as having religion in the same way that our universe is. And although there are hell analogs, chaos being one, the term hell itself is still not usually used to refer to those locations. It's used in common language very frequently, which again is a little bit weird. Another example would be AT-ATs. You can make the argument, as many have, that it's high galactic or whatever else, but to be honest, why is it there? To make our enjoyment and our understanding as a viewer better. But is there a lore explanation for this? Well, the answer is sort of. There are two things I want to talk about. First, I'm going to go off track a little bit and talk about Halo, because Halo is another universe which, if you pay attention, has some anachronistic language. Let's look to the terminals from Halo 3 and the Forerunner Flood War. In those terminals, you can read about the Maginot Line. The Maginot Line, for those who don't know, is a reference to a famous defensive line made in the 1930s in France. How could the Forerunners, many thousands of years ago, take an inspiration from something that didn't yet exist? Well, it's pretty simple. That's not the actual vernacular or the term that the Forerunners would have used to describe the Maginot Line or the Maginot Sphere. Rather, it's a phrase translated for the purpose of the reader. So if someone who's familiar with World War II history reads about the Forerunner Maginot Line, they'll get an idea of what the fortifications would have been like, at least in a metaphorical sense, i.e. a defensive structure which protected an entire region, cost a lot of money, but was ultimately breached and not as effective as its designers were hoping it would be. So yeah, it's a term used within the lore to help the reader understand, and we know that because it's made explicit within Halo lore, because the terminals are sort of a self-contained thing in universe. Now, how is that relevant to Star Wars? Because my argument is that Star Wars is basically presented in the same way. First of all, I'm not a person that's bothered by that at all. I don't really need an explanation, but I know a lot of people do try to get as immersed in the universe as possible, so that helps. Here's how I would explain it. When we're told a Star Wars story, or when we watch a Star Wars story, if you want to make sense of why all of these weird idioms and anachronisms exist, it's because the story is being presented in a way that we will understand. I mean, obviously none of it really happened, but even if you're trying to imagine it happening, the language being spoken in the movies, basic, wasn't actually English. That's just what we understand it as, because the story's sort of being retold to us. And I like this explanation because I think it's in line with a generally healthy way to understand the lore. Pablo Hidalgo tweeted about this before he wiped one of his public Twitter accounts a while ago. He said that he frequently thinks about Star Wars as stories being told to a person. Yes, sometimes there will be inconsistencies, sometimes the story will evolve slightly, and that's just the nature of storytelling. You're not really experiencing the story in a perfect way, you're not watching it through the eyes of a camera. It's a recreation, and that's why there are terms that we can understand, and that's why the other issues that exist in Star Wars can be written off. Or I mean, don't worry about it, understand it as space magic, it doesn't matter. I just think it's an interesting way to look at Star storytelling from an outside perspective. But that's all I got for you guys today, a short and sweet video. Thanks again to Clam Burglar for becoming my second ever Dreadnought tier patron, and thank you to Kevin for the interesting video idea. I'll link to his channel down below. Until next time though guys, have a good one, be safe, and of course, may the Force be with you.